You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sarah J. Loureiro.
Welcome back to another episode of the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. This is me, Sarah. This is going to be another solo episode about something that a lot of my clients and my community ask me about in specific when it comes to business advice and who we should and should not be getting business advice from. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people who don't end up becoming my clients and a lot of people who don't really end up having successful businesses listen to a lot of really shitty advice. And this is one of the reasons why I want to create this episode, because I have been in business for 10 years. I've made over $3 million online, and I've been in business full time for over 7 years now. So I have a lot to say about all of those family opinions, which friends you should talk to about business, which friends you shouldn't talk to about business. Of course, the shoulds and shouldn'ts in your world are things that are, things that are very personal and very yours. But I hope that this episode just really sheds light on, the things that can happen if you listen to the wrong people in your life about business. So let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? I feel super fired up about this episode just because it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. As you all know, I live in Nicaragua. I actually don't live near any family. And the past 2 years, we haven't really lived near any of my husband's family either. And I think that has really, really helped us become more independent and become more of our own independent thinkers. And that's one of the first things that I want to really talk about is, for me personally, and this is going to look different for every person who's listening to this, but for me personally, the less I listened to my parents' advice about my life after I was like 22, 23 years old, the more successful I became. And the reason for this is not because my parents give horrible advice. It was just because they were giving advice from their lens. They were giving advice from the world that they knew. And I was receiving their advice from the world that I knew that they knew, but I was also receiving advice from a place where they didn't really know the world that I was living in. They didn't really know the world that I was being raised in. It was a completely different world. And I think especially even now, I have a son, and even when I give him advice, it's going to be from my world. It's going to be from the world that I grew up in, and it's going to be very, very different in the world that he grows up in. Of course, there are certain aspects of being wiser that, yes, really do help. But when you're receiving advice from people about a subject that they know nothing about, there's no wisdom in that. And I think that's a very, very important thing to understand, that when you're receiving advice from someone from a world that they know nothing about, there really is no wisdom. There's no wisdom there. So it doesn't matter if they're older, younger, more educated than you. If it is not their topic of expertise, there's no wisdom in their response. If their response is going to support you and it's going to support your own intuition and what you already believe to be true, then absolutely. I have clients who have family members who are incredibly supportive of them. I have clients who talk to their moms, and so they'll go and they'll have a conversation with their mom to feel more secure in their decisions because their moms help to support them on the thing that they really want to do. I have clients who go to their partners, their significant others, and ask their significant others for advice, because they know that their significant other is always going to have their best interests at heart, but not just their best interest. They're going to have their own empowerment at heart. And that is a very key thing. And one thing that I've realized that I've noticed with women, especially who are really successful, is that they don't go to family members and they don't go to significant others and they don't go to friends for advice when they already know what their gut intuition is going to tell them. In fact, I just recently had a client who called her husband about investing in her business. Her husband told her, maybe you shouldn't do that. And she was like, you know what? I shouldn't have called him. He's always been a skeptic. I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I want to pay in full. And why did she do that? She did that because she trusted in herself. And she did that because she knew that her own guidance, her own intuition was going to lead her somewhere so much further than someone who, quote unquote, had her best interests at heart, but was really afraid for her. And I think that that's one of the worst things that happens with family members and what happens with friends when we go to them for advice is they want to think the best for us, but they end up trying to protect us from something that is actually going to set us free. And I really do believe that. And if we don't trust ourselves enough, we're always going to lean on people who we're going to say, you know, they have my best interests at heart. I'm totally going to listen to them because we're so afraid of listening to ourselves. We're so afraid of listening to ourselves. And let me tell you guys, I was really lucky the very first time that I invested in my business because I wouldn't have done it had it not been for my husband. He's the one who was just like, how much is it? That's nothing. He's like, you have that money. Go use it. Invest in it. You know, enjoy this. Do this thing for yourself. You're not going to regret it. And I wouldn't have done it. And so that was really beautiful for me because he trusted in me more than I trusted in myself. But when we go after other people's opinions, where they are looking to protect us from potential failure, they're already not counting on us. They're already giving us a type of advice that is really just going to go completely against our goals and our dreams and what we think we're capable of. They're basically telling us, so when they tell us not to do something, it's because they don't believe it's possible for us. That sucks. It sucks to go to someone for advice and them saying, you shouldn't do that. You know, like, I think because I'm your dad or because I'm your mom or because I'm your husband or your wife, I think that this is not a good idea because they don't believe that we can do it. That's horrible, right? To me, that's a really horrible feeling. And the minute that we allow those people to have an opinion that is higher than our own about our own life and what it is that we are capable of, we're not going to go after our dreams. We're not going to go after our businesses. We're not going to go after our goals because we don't believe in ourselves. Right? Usually a lot of people who have to go and talk to their husbands or talk to their spouses after making a decision on a call, they already have a decision in their own gut. But a lot of the times they don't trust in themselves enough. They trust in the other person more. And the other person also doesn't trust in them. They trust in their own safety and security and their own aversion to risk. There's always one partner who's more risk averse than the other. And if the partner who loves taking risk, if they don't fully trust themselves, then they're never going to take those risks because they're always going to ask the person to talk themselves out of it. And I've seen this time and time again. And it's hard. It's really hard to deal with. And so what I've decided to do for my own business and for my own life, and one thing that I try to tell my clients as much as I can is I don't go to advice from people who aren't living the life that I want to live or who aren't an expert in the thing that I really want to do. It wouldn't make sense, right? I'm not going to go to a doctor and ask him about my mortgage or ask her about my mortgage the same way that I'm not going to go to a realtor and ask them about, like this consistent headache problem that I keep on having with myself. I'm not going to them because they are not experts in those things. It makes no sense. So if they are not experts in those things, then why are we going after people's opinions and asking for people's advice on business when they know nothing about business? It's really bizarre to me. Another really bizarre thing that I've seen happen a lot is when people ask their accountants what they should do with their businesses. Because I'm like, accountants aren't business owners. They're not CEOs. Accountants see the worst. They actually see the worst. And what they want to protect you from is going into having more financial burdens on yourself. So they'll see business as a risk. They're risk averse. They're not going to tell you to go invest in business. They're going to be like, no, we should put this money in an index fund where it appreciates at an average of 8% a year. And they're not going to have you bet on yourself to go invest that money into something that can potentially become an investment that pays off so much more than 8% a year. In fact, if I had listened to my accountant was literally like, you won't have internet in Nicaragua. I don't think you should go there. You're not going to have high-speed, reliable internet. Also, this yoga stuff that you want to do, that doesn't really make any sense. Like, are you really going to find people who are going to pay you more than, $20 a session to do this? I found people who paid me $150 to $200 a session, by the way. Okay. He had no idea what he was talking about. Was he smart? Yeah. Was he good with money? Yeah. He didn't know anything about business. So I asked him these things, and then I listened to his advice, and I was like, luckily at that time I had business mentors in my life. And I said, no, I'm not going to listen to you, but thank you for your advice. However, it's not good advice. It's not good advice for a business owner. You don't actually know what you're talking about. I've had high-speed internet in Nicaragua since I moved here. He said that there wouldn't be any. He doesn't know anything about Nicaragua. He was a Canadian accountant in Toronto who knew nothing about where I was going. He just formulated these opinions. And had I listened to him and had I said like, oh, no, but he's an accountant, he's good with money, he's really smart, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I'd be in that exact same job. And I'd have a lot less money, let me tell you that. If I had listened to my parents for advice, in all honesty, if I had listened to my parents, I would not be where I am right now. And that was also really hard. My parents are really smart people. They're really financially, they're very intelligent. They've done really well for themselves, considering that they're two people who, my dad never even graduated high school. My mom graduated high school. She didn't do anything after that. And so considering where they come from, they've actually done really well for themselves. And for me to not take on their advice was also really hard. But I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew the world that they couldn't see, and I trusted myself more than those opinions. And I really do feel like more women need to do that for themselves. More women need to trust themselves more than they trust all of the people around them. And not just trust themselves, but also like trust the people who are actually doing the things that you want to do. Trust the people who have the life that you want to have. Not everyone's just selling you on a beautiful life. Like, I live it. I help my clients do it day after day. I've helped so many of my clients get into this space where they're like, oh my goodness, my time is mine now. I can have my children. I can actually spend time with my children. I love hearing that. I love hearing my clients say, oh, I doubled my income. And, if they had gone to those family members, if they had gone to those friends who told them that it wasn't possible for them, they wouldn't be celebrating with me. And I want more women to celebrate with me. I want more women to make decisions from a place of success and a place of desire, not from a place of, oh my God, but what if it goes wrong? And too many people make decisions from a place of what if it goes wrong? And I think that is one of the number one reasons why people don't have success in their businesses. Another thing that I've also learned that is super helpful is, let's say, for example, once you do invest, once you do take a bet on yourself, once you risk something and you put yourself into your business, there are going to be a lot of people who ask you. They're going to be very curious about it. And another thing that I find is that people who don't know anything about business also don't know about the roller coaster ride that is business, because they're so used to their 9 to 5s. They're so used to their steady paychecks. And what ends up happening is they don't understand that like you can make $10,000 one month and $2,000 the next month and $20,000 the next month. And so there are going to be times where you're like, business is great. And then other times where you're like, oh my God, business isn't that great. And if that person doesn't understand that about business, they're going to want to validate your feelings. They're going to want to really help you with that. They're going to, maybe they might ask a few more questions. And what I've found from this is the least amount of information that you can give to people who don't really know anything about business, the better. And in fact, if you already know that someone's response to you can be really triggering, or if their question to you can be really triggering, a really great thing that I love to say that's like a really great blanket statement is, if anyone ever asks you about your business, you can be like, my business is doing so well. Thank you so much for asking. And if they ask, tell me a little bit more, how are you doing? You can just say, oh, I have some really great projects in the works and I am just developing them right now. And I am really happy with the way things are going. And then ask them a question about them. How's your work doing, Bob? Right? How is your project going? How's school going for you? How's retirement going for you? And just kind of put it back on them. I always love using that blanket statement of things are going really well for me. And that being it, to be able to really seal off that conversation and to also not invite any more digging from someone. And this could be a friend too. And you can have friends, you can have family members that you bond with over other things, but that just aren't business. And that's totally fine. I think we have this idea in our heads that we have to bond with people over everything. We always have to be really polite. We always have to answer questions very honestly. But even if you're just saying, hey, it's going really well, thank you, that's enough. That's enough of a response for someone, especially someone who cannot handle the highs and lows of business, or, all of the emotions that you are going through in that moment. And if you know that someone cannot handle that for you, then you need to make sure that you make it a point to not have them be your designated person that you talk to about business. And I've learned this time and time again. I mean, I've been in business for over 10 years now. And so I have my go-to people who I talk to about business. There are some people in my life who have no idea what I do with my business. They have no idea what type of business I run. They just know what I'm doing on social media. They don't know how well it's going. They don't know anything about my career, and that's fine. And that's the way that I like it, because those aren't the things that I bond with those specific people over. I know that I have my dedicated people. I know I have my business coaches. I know how I have my mentors, and I know I have my friends who understand business that I can speak to about my business plan, about how my business is going. And for everyone else, they just get the blanket statements, and that's okay. It's so important that you give yourself these boundaries, because any little thing, especially when you're new, any little thing can really mess with your mindset. And if you're not careful, you're going to end up listening to advice from the wrong people who aren't successful in business, or worse, people who've had bad experiences with business and want to make sure that you don't go through their bad experience. And that can just get really messy, because then you're putting yourself into someone else's experience, someone else's situation. And it has nothing to do with you, and it has nothing to do with your experience. But because, especially when you're new, because the experience is so new to you, you can be very susceptible to other people's opinions. You can be very susceptible to other people's advice. But the best thing that you can do for yourself is make sure that you're not getting advice from people who aren't where you want to be. It's the biggest thing. Don't accept advice from people who are in a place in their life where you don't want to be. And for all of the people who are in a place in their life where you don't want to be, and who don't know anything about business, or you cannot trust with your own emotions or with the way that you want to handle your situation, just give them the blanket statement. Business is going really well. Thank you. Pass on a question to them, or move on to another topic of conversation. You'll be surprised at how much you can shield your energy, and then how much you can actually place your energy and start to move your energy towards the people who can actually handle what it is that you're doing inside of your business. You can still create relationships with those other people that don't involve you getting emotional or you getting sidetracked from your business goals. And then you can really keep and really harness the potential of having the people that you feel safe around. And when you can do that, when you can create those boundaries, then you feel safe enough to go all in. You feel safe enough to truly open up to all of your goals and all of your dreams and all of your desires, because you have the people around you who are actually backing that and who want to see you succeed. Right? It's not that your other family members and friends don't want to see you succeed. It's the fact that they are always going to come at you from their own perspective, from their own opinions. And you want people who place your own empowerment above their need to justify their own living situation. So I'm going to leave you with that. I hope that you like this episode. I'm super curious as well as to what you got from it. You can always reach out to me on Instagram. It's at Sarah without an H, J, Loureiro, Sarah J. Loureiro. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarahjloureiro.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.